Pastors in California are being targeted to adopt the LGBT agenda. On Monday, the California State Assembly passed a resolution directing religious leaders in the state to promote homosexual and transgender lifestyles as normal. The measure, called ACR 99, also calls attempts to change unwanted same-sex attraction or gender confusion unethical and harmful. And joining us now is Roger Ganim, Vice President of Legal Affairs with the Liberty Counsel. Welcome, Mr. Ganim.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
First of all, what can you tell us more about ACR 99 and this push to force clergy to promote the LGBT lifestyle?
Well, this is a terrible resolution, and it's really it's a slander against the church. It's a slander against Christian counselors. And maybe most importantly, it's a slander against the thousands of faithful people who have found deliverance from unwanted same-sex attraction and gender confusion by seeking out this kind of counseling. So this resolution it's bad all the way around. And just as an example, it blames the church and religious leaders for the high rates of suicide among those who identify as LGBT. That's simply a false claim. It cannot be backed up empirically. And yet this resolution states it as if it's a fact. And of course, the problem we have here is that we have Christian leaders who are endorsing this statement and joining in this falsehood. And so it's a really bad resolution for the state of California, and it certainly is a foreshadowing of worse things to come.
And I understand that more than 24 doctors, counselors, Christian counselors, former homosexuals, and Christian leaders have signed a letter condemning this resolution. What can you tell us about that?
Well, that's absolutely right. Some of the signatories on that letter are our own clients, who are Christian counselors who have helped thousands of people overcome and reduce unwanted same-sex attractions and gender confusion. And the point that they're trying to make is that, look, we have a track record. We have actual patients and clients who have benefited from therapy to help them with their unwanted attractions. We've helped them change their lives. We've helped them to live heterosexual lifestyles with strong and healthy marriages. And so it's really a slander against them to say that this practice is somehow unethical or harmful. And what we have to be aware of is this use of the term conversion therapy. It's a political term, and it's really a euphemism that's intended to evoke images of involuntary shock treatment in a church basement or something ridiculous like that, that even if it ever happened, which is doubtful, it certainly isn't happening in 2019. So the whole idea here is to make illegal the very idea that change is possible. And that's what's so dangerous about a resolution like this, because even though it doesn't have the force of law, it lays a foundation for future laws to come, which ultimately could make it illegal to even have these conversations in a counseling room with someone who really wants to change.
Well, you certainly are really talking about the very next question I was going to ask you about the threat that this resolution poses to the rights of Christians in California and possibly, down the road in other states.
That's absolutely right. We've already seen the proposed bill from the same assemblyman, Evan Lowe, which would have made it illegal for anyone to provide this kind of counseling or even sell books about it. For some reason, Assemblyman Lowe withdrew that bill last year, even though he had the votes to pass it. So this resolution is perhaps an incremental approach to getting to the same goal, which is to make it illegal to have a conversation in a counseling room that tells a person that if you want to change, that it's possible. And that's what's so dangerous about it. Putting aside the blatant violation of the First Amendment, it just shows that the church is under attack and is the target of folks like Assemblyman Lowe in California.
And Dr. Kevin, if I'm pronouncing his last name correctly, Manoa, who is a chaplain at Azusa Pacific and the former head of the National Association of Evangelicals, he supports this resolution. What have you learned about that?
Well, being as charitable as possible towards a Christian brother, it's really disappointing that he would put aside the truth of the matter just to gain some favor or perhaps a seat at the table of this discussion. Everyone deserves respect in this discussion and dialogue about what kind of counseling should be allowed in California. But to join in a document, as Dr. Manoia has done, that really slanders the church and slanders good counselors and good patients. It's unexplainable, and it's really inexcusable. And we would call on Dr. Manoia and anyone else who joined with him in supporting this resolution to withdraw that support and to admit that it's presenting a false picture of what's actually going on with faithful Christian counselors and the thousands of people who are being helped by them.
You mentioned earlier that the resolution does not have the force of law. What exactly does that mean, and where does it go from here?
Well, a resolution like this, it becomes part of the public policy of the state. And so it will be a foundation for future laws. It will be a foundation for localities, for cities and counties within California to pass their own ordinances and laws against Christian counseling like this. So it creates a foundation and a starting point for future bad legislation. We've seen this happen all around the country with Christian counselors, and we know what happens from a resolution like this. And so we would hope the California Senate won't adopt it, but it would certainly seem that the votes are there.
Wow. Finally, what can Christians do to stop this? I mean, what are you encouraging people in the state of California to do?
Well, that's a really good question. And our first answer, of course, is to pray for guidance for these legislators, pray for the Christian counselors and the churches that are being affected by this.
See